Hello friends. In today's session, I shall discuss about the skill of explanation. This skill is also a part of micro-teaching and it is very important for every teacher to know and to acquire this skill. So let us quickly understand what this implies. This skill states that every teacher should possess the ability to bring down the subject matter as per the level of the learner. In other words, it says that the teacher needs to simplify the subject matter so that the students are comfortable enough to participate for the day's lesson. If the subject matter is being simplified, then what happens is that the teacher will be, the learner will be in a position to acquire the information what is being provided to them in a way that it involves the ability to explain the concept, event, themes, meaning, defining the underlying meaning, ideas, all those in a well sequenced and in a logical manner. So, the teacher needs to consider few things, that is, to whom the teacher is going to teach, how the teacher is going to teach, why, where, when, for whom, what are the things that the teacher needs to incorporate in the while explaining the lesson. Everything needs to be crystal clear. Okay, so explaining skill is the most important part in teaching, because all learning ultimately depends upon what the teacher is explaining. Okay, so this skill needs to be considered very thoroughly. Let us switch to the next slide. Now, coming to the explaining again, there are certain explaining links that the teacher needs to use while teaching. These explaining links can be such as therefore, because, or you can say because of, so that, hence, in order to, as a result of, due to, since, that is why, that is how, etc. There are many more explaining links that a teacher needs to use while delivering the lesson. This sort of explaining links will definitely arouse the interest among the learners. They will be able to participate, they will be inquisitive to know what next. This sort of explaining links implies that the teacher is trying to connect the previous explanation or idea to that what the teacher is presently speaking, and switching to the next, how the teacher is intending to switch to the next part of the idea. Clear? So in this way, the teacher needs to use the explaining links while delivering the lesson. Also, the teacher needs to cover only the essential points. While explaining, the teacher needs to keep eye-to-eye contact with their pupils so that the students are aware that they are being attended by the teacher. I also would like to add another thing, is that the teacher needs to build up a rapport among the learners, and this would be possible only if the learners feel that they are being attended by the teacher. All learners, as we all know, that they are individually different. In other words, there are diverse learners inside the classroom situation. So each teacher needs to identify each and every students. They have to recognize them. They have to see the strengths and weaknesses among the learners, and accordingly the teacher needs to deliver the lesson. It is only then the students will be motivated to participate. They will feel that yes, teacher is not discriminating anyone. The teacher is equally paying attention to every learner's needs. Also, while keeping the eye-to-eye contact, what happens is that all students will be bound to be attentive. They will feel that yes, the teacher might ask the question. So in a way that the students are indirectly pressured to pay attention to. Also, while writing in the board, the teacher needs to ensure that the teacher turns and look at the pupils. So this is also very important. The teacher needs to write very fast and just to the point, and ensure that the teacher turns and look at the learners, so that the learner feels that yes, the teacher will turn and look at them, so they cannot engage themselves in they're not engaging themselves, speaking to each other or making noise or not paying attention. So such sort of discipline can be created while teacher is explaining the lesson. And if the teacher develops the skill of explaining with a better idea and a better approach, then definitely each and every students will attend the lesson. Switching over to the next part is the components of explaining skill. So the first and the foremost is clear beginning. Okay, I repeat, clear beginning statement or use of introductory statement. This implies that before starting up any sort of explanation, the teacher should ensure that the pupil are aware of what the teacher is exactly going to say or teach. Therefore, the previous knowledge of the learner needs to be taken care of by the teacher. This is very much important. It is only then the student will be able to pay attention, or will be they will not be at loss to what exactly the teacher is saying. They will not be lost. They will know, okay, the teacher is trying to say this. Is that clear? In this way, by having a clear beginning statement, interest can be aroused among the learners. The next part of my discussion is use of relevant statement. As it has already been stated that relevant points and statements should be used while explaining. Clear? So fluency in language. This is also a very important part, or you can say important component of explanation skill. Now, fluency in language, it doesn't imply that the teacher needs to prove their pronunciation skill or their talent, ability, their career profile, their degrees, their smartness in pronouncing. No, the teacher needs to just keep this mind that their words should be simple and powerful. It should be simple as per the level of the learners. Okay? It is the learners who is there to take in the information, and if it is not learner friendly, then definitely the learner will not learn. Isn't it so? So this is why we say that fluency in language is very important, because classroom teaching mostly depends upon our communication power. If we are not able to clearly state what exactly we want to let the pupil know, then definitely learning will not take place. So fluency in language is very important for a teacher, okay, while explaining because the meaning, you see, the explanation can carry out different meaning. A simple word can have different meanings. So a teacher needs to well define themselves and explain in a way that the student take in the information what exactly the teacher has intended for. This is all. Okay, so the next component is connecting links. As I've already stated that in order to sustain the interest level among the learners, connecting links are very important. So the statements, as I've already stated earlier, if these sort of words or terms are being used for connecting the explanation of the first idea to that of the present idea and the next part of the discussion, then definitely uh, the students, the learners will know what exactly is going on. If a teacher says something and switch to the next part without any connection, then confusion will develop among the learners. With this, even the next component, that is use of proper words, is also very important. Is that clear? So use of proper words, implying that the words should not have ambiguity. Okay, if suppose it is ambiguous, it has so many meanings. The teacher needs to clarify it. So clarity in what they say or what the word exactly tries to state or define should be taken care of. This will help to erase the confusion among the learner. So use of proper words is also very important component with regard to explanation skills. I hope this is clear. There's a spelling mistake here. It should be words for explaining, okay, EX. Anyway, let's switch to the next part, that is what are the necessary precautions that a teacher needs to take while explaining. As I said earlier, it should be as simple as possible. Okay, so that's the first part of precaution that a teacher needs to take into account. The next is it should not be given the shape of an advice. Means if a teacher is trying to explain something, it should be based on what the paragraph is exactly trying to say. You cannot pressure a student or debate with the paragraph and make them realize what you exactly want, what exactly you are thinking and what you want the students to think. No. The teacher's main concern is what the paragraph is stating, and basing on that, the teacher needs to place the exact meaning using their own way of explanation, and it should be placed before the learner. The next part is the thoughts included in it should be in a sequence. As I said earlier as well, each explanation, the first, the second, and what is coming next, okay, that is what I said, what I am saying, and what I will be saying, it should be interconnected. It is only then proper learning will take place. There should be a sequence. It's like, take for example, while teaching micro teaching, imagine that I have not discussed with you all the meaning, concept, or the definition of micro teaching. I straightly came off to one skill. Supposing I've touched upon the reinforcement part. Clear? So I discussed about reinforcement, then I switched to the purpose of micro teaching. Then next part of my discussion would be the components. The next part of my discussion would be the consequences of micro teaching. What are the consequences of micro teaching? Then you see, it should not be jumbled up. Is that clear? It should not be jumbled up. It should be in an order. It should be in a sequential order. Then only it will make sense. Okay, our explanation will make sense if there is a sequence. And the next part, precaution that we need to take into consideration is relevant things should be included. Relevant, okay, only the relevant things should be included. So irrelevant part should be avoided by the teacher. So include only the basic important points that are required for the day's lesson. Okay, the next part of consideration is it should be according to the age, experience, and mental level of the pupil. The teacher, as I said, the teacher is not here to prove himself. The teacher is here to make the student understand or produce the learning material in a way that the student will be able to participate, understand, and will be able to reproduce and make use of it. Okay? So, this will be possible only when the teacher considers the fact that this particular learner of this age group will be able to learn this way. This sort of activities can be given to this particular age group of children. The teacher needs to consider that if I give this sort of explanation, these examples are added, this chart or model is added, then the student will be able to understand. Clear? So all these basic things the teacher needs to take into account while explaining. The teacher needs to ensure that if there are some difficult words, then the teacher needs to simplify it by explaining it to the pupil and stating that what this word exactly implies. So in this way, the teacher making use of his explanation skill can develop learning among the learners. Okay, so in today's session, what we have understood is that what explanation skill is, what are the different components, and what precautions a teacher needs to take while explaining. So in a gist, we state that clarity in pronunciation is very important for a teacher. A rapport building is important. Okay. Then again, you can say that the teacher should explain in a way that the learner is able to learn. That means considering the level of the learner. The teacher begins the explanation by giving a beginning statement, an introductory statement, making use of the introductory statement. Okay. The teacher relates the ideas by using the explaining links. Isn't it so? So all these things a teacher needs to keep in mind while explaining. This is the main part of a teacher for making his teaching efficient and effective. So in my next part of my discussion, I shall touch upon the skill of illustration with example. That will also be a part of explanation, but I shall discuss it in my next session so that things becomes more clear, okay, for you all. So till then, thank you all. Take care.